Alright, so in this video I'm going to be showing you how to use the Puggmill to recycle clay. The first thing I'm doing is I'm cutting clay off of the mound that's next to the Puggmill and I'm throwing it in. The more clay that you can put in before closing the lid, the better this works. This is me closing the lid. While you close this, it's important that you push the second button down. The first button is red and it's the stop button. The second button is the mix button. This is the button you want to press when it goes down. The final button is for making the clay come out of the front. It's the pug button. So we'll be using the mix button. While I press this button down, I press the arm down and the motor takes over and helps push the clay down. Now when I open up the chamber, you'll notice that there's more room for me to put more clay. So I repeat that process. I cut off a piece of clay. This clay is a little stiff, so as I throw stiff clay in there, I will have to balance that out in a little bit with some wet clay. Again, the more clay that gets put into the machine with each press, the less times you have to fill it and the faster it goes. You can see I'm leaning some weight on the machine as I push the center button, which is the mix button. Now I'm going to be grabbing some wet clay. There's usually a bucket full of wet clay. Don't put your dry clay in this bucket. This wet clay is going to help balance out the moisture content of the clay so it's soft when it comes out. You can see I put one handful in and I'm going to put another handful in a second. When you're adding the wet clay, it's always good to put a piece of dry clay on top. It makes less of a mess. And you can see I'm putting more clay in the mixer because I'm trying to get it to fill as quickly as possible. Once the machine is full, I need to clean off the seal on the top of the arm. This seal goes all the way around, and you want to make sure that the black rubber line is clean and exposed. And also, we need to clean, as I am now, the surface of the rim so that when those two areas go together, it creates a tight seal. There are 4 seals on the machine, that being one of the seals, the rubber end being another seal. There's a valve on the side. It turned to the left means it's closed. And then there's the rubber seal on this little door. Those 4 seals need to be cleaned and shut for this process to work and for the air to be taken out of the machine. Now that the machine is relatively full, we're going to let the clay mix for 3 to 5 minutes by pushing the center button, which is the mix button. I'm just checking to see if the clay is wet enough, and it is, so I'll continue mixing. This should mix for 5 minutes. Now that the clay is mixed for 5 minutes, we're going to let the pressure build in the machine as it's mixing by turning on the vacuum with a little knob to the right of the mix button. You can see the pressure on the valve going up. It needs to go up at least to 20 for clay to come out. Once it's at 20, I can hit the stop button. The vacuum is still on, and then I hit the pug button. I'm adjusting a small knob which slows the rate at which the clay comes out. I'm doing this to make sure that the clay comes out evenly and the pressure stays up. While I'm pugging the clay, I'm looking at the little pressure gauge and making sure that the pressure stays at or above 20 psi. Any lower and the clay coming out will have air in it. The clay is now coming out of the machine and I turned off the vacuum. We turn off the vacuum when about 4 to 5 inches come out and the pressure stays up. Once the log comes out, I'm having it come out slow at first. We can rip the log off by lifting up or by pushing down, and we'll place that log in an organized pile. There's a pile right next to me inside the clay chest of all these scraps. Those should not be there. Those scraps should have gone on the large pile. You'll notice as the clay is coming out that it has kind of almost like a scale texture. That just means that the person before me was pugging clay a little too dry. And when I pugged the appropriate wetness of clay, it created kind of like a pulled pattern. That will go away as I keep pugging it. That doesn't mean the clay isn't good. You can see I'm just smoothing it out there so that no one thinks it's a bad log of clay. When you're pugging clay, if the machine is full, you should get 4 to 5 logs per machine being full. If you're getting extra credit, that full machine gives 1 point of extra credit to one person. So there's 4 logs, and I think here is the 5th one. So from here, the clay has started to slow down as it comes out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the pressure valve. But first, we want to double check if the pressure wasn't above 20, then that means all the clay I pugged would have been bad. As you open the pressure valve, as I just did, you're going to hear a loud noise which is air rushing into the machine. The last piece of clay that comes off, you can check. What you want to do is peel a piece off and roll it between your hands, and then wrap it around your finger. It shouldn't crack or break when you wrap it around your finger. If the piece of clay breaks, that means that the clay is either too hard, you didn't add enough wet clay, or you need to make sure the air is gone. If you want extra credit, you sign your name and your class period, and myself or a TA will turn it off. You want to make sure that the chest is closed and the little rubber cap is back on the machine, and you're all set.